The transfer market is open again. Now, whenever it opens, there's gossip and rumours and conjecture everywhere. But today we're going to focus on the reporting that has appeared in the Athletic's deal sheet, your perfect guide to understanding the summer transfer market. Today that includes Manchester United's opening bid for Everton defender Jarrad Branthwaite, Arsenal's focus on midfield targets, and I'm joined by JJ Bull and John McKenzie to discuss all of those things.
But I like football rumours and gossip.
I like football rumours and gossip too, but I think it's important to distinguish what we're going to talk about in this show. As I mentioned in the intro, it appeared in the deal sheet, and I'm going to read now what the beginning of the deal sheet says. The information found within this article has been gathered according to the Athletic's sourcing guidelines, unless otherwise stated. Our reporters have spoken to more than one person briefed on each deal. So the things we are about to talk about, whether or not the moves happen, the movements towards those moves, it's true. That's why we're discussing it here.
That sounds great.
It is great. And to start, John, something else that's great. Manchester United made an opening bid for Everton's Jarrad Branthwaite defender. It was £35 million. It's clear also from the Athletic's reporting that Everton will not be accepting that bid and see it falls far below their expected level of about 70 million, I think. But let's start with talking about Branthwaite specifically. Why is it that Manchester United would be interested in him as a player?
Well, Manchester United want a centre-back, and Jarrad Branthwaite is a centre-back, so it makes a degree of sense, you could argue. But Branthwaite, a really nice profile for centre-backs, the sort of thing that a lot of elite football clubs would be looking for right now, particularly the physical aspect. So 6'5", but he still has a degree of mobility as well. So it means that not only is he good in the air, he's also very mobile defending, both ways, stepping up, dropping back. But he's also good on the ball as well. So he sort of fills that kind of profile ideal that a lot of elite football clubs have.
Big and mobile, yeah? That doesn't happen very often. Or I feel like if it does happen, they go to Man City.
Yeah, and the game, I think, is moving towards a priority of these really physical profiles. So a lot of the centre-backs, no doubt, that we'll be talking about in the summer transfer window will be those players who you get the balance right between being big and able to stop teams from scoring, but also able to help your team through the first few phases of build-up. So Manchester City in the last few seasons have fielded mobile centre-backs who are quite physically imposing in almost every position in their defensive line. So that's the way that the game's moving. So Branthwaite, I think a lot of teams will be looking at him thinking, this is the perfect sort of profile. He's only 21 years old, so you'll get a good contract length out of him, and the hope is that he'll develop into one of the best centre-backs in the world.
Something else that's come up around this topic is that Branthwaite is left-footed. Manchester United, of course, already have Lisandro Martinez, who's left-footed and plays on the left. Maguire, who's right-footed but has historically played on the left. Is there a question in why they're looking at a predominantly left-sided centre-back? Or?
Yeah, well, I think they're looking for a right-sided centre-back, I suspect. But with Jarrad Branthwaite, he is quite ambipedal, so he uses both.
Ambipedal? What?
Yeah, well, ambidextrous.
Ambifoot what?
He can use both feet.
Oh, I see.
So when he's passing, he is good with his right foot as well as his left foot.
I use both feet when I'm walking.
Yeah, you are indeed very ambipedal when it comes to walking. So we've got a graph here from The Athletic which shows ambipediality, I guess.
Yes.
And it's just the share of passes, left foot, right foot on a percentile scale. So what we're looking at is the middle here. So the closer you are to the middle, the more ambipedal you are. And as you can see, Branthwaite's right up there. So 41% of his passes he plays with his right foot. So he can play on the right side of defence. And I think that's the area where Manchester United will be looking for. They're losing Rafael Varane. They have Maguire and Lisandro Martinez who can play on the left-hand side. So yeah, it's a sort of weird one to have the possibility that you could play Harry Maguire, a right-footed centre-back on the left-hand side, and Jarrad Branthwaite, a left-footed centre-back on the right-hand side. I'm not entirely sure what the thinking is there, but the idea being that because he is so strong on his right foot, he should be okay to play in that role. And he's played in that role for PSV last season when he was there on loan. So, I do think it's worth talking a little bit about the left foot, right foot, centre-back combination. We've talked about it before, but I think it's quite interesting to discuss when it comes to Branthwaite.
I'd be curious to hear that, because I think when you describe Maguire and Branthwaite either side with a strong central foot, that sounds kind of fun. But why is that a problem?
Well, there's a couple of aspects to it in terms of when you're playing for a team who want to build up from the back. So imagine Manchester United are trying to build up, and if you're a centre-back in this sort of system, what you're going to be doing then is receiving the ball from the goalkeeper or from the other other centre back. So you're constantly receiving the ball from slightly behind you or from the side. And what's going to be happening is you're going to be being pressed probably from one of the opponent forwards into out. So essentially what that means is that they're going to be pressing in this kind of direction because they want to force the ball out into the wide area and then squeeze you against the touchline. So when you're receiving the ball then, ideally what you want to do is you want to move it away from the on-rushing pressing player to give you the ability to play the pass. And then if you're a left-footed player in this sort of situation, you can curl the ball down the line. Whereas if you're right-footed, it's going to tend the other way. I can't put the bends on here, but if you're a left-footed player, it just makes it a little bit safer for you to receive the ball and then move it on into the feet of like the fullback in this situation. The issue is,
I guess your strong foot is the foot that's further away from the pass. So when you're receiving it, you can turn more naturally with it.
Yeah. So if you imagine Martinez receiving the ball, he's left-footed. So what he'll do is let the ball run across his body and then just take it in his stride and can give it a sort of positive push out wide. That takes it away from this player and also makes it easy for him to run on and play the pass to Shaw on his stride. The problem is that let's say we've got Maguire in this scenario. When the ball arrives at him, if he wants to receive it on his right foot, his right foot is over here on the ball. Let me just draw it in. So his right foot is here. So what do you do when you receive the ball here? You can't really let it run past your body unless you take it on your left foot, and obviously that is a possibility for him. But most of the time, then he's going to take a touch towards the on-rushing player, and also because he is right-footed and he's going to be swinging his foot through the ball this way. Again, you're going to be tempting the on-rushing player here to come in and take it off him. He also needs to be able to swing his foot. So he needs the ball to be in this kind of area to actually play the curved pass in the first place. Yeah. And as we've said before, because he is right-footed, that natural curve is going to be out of the pitch rather than if you're a left footer, you can just shell it down the line and keep it in as well. So
unless of course he hits it with the outside of his boot.
Sure, there's plenty of other things you could do that I think would just make it less consistent. But the point here is that if you're wanting to build up from the back, it gives you a lot more scope to be more comfortable in those sorts of positions, playing with your stronger foot. But there's also a defensive aspect here as well, and this is something that Erik ten Hag has talked about in the past about why he didn't like Maguire playing on the left-hand side, and that is, again, it's to do with your footedness. But if we think Maguire, again, he's right-footed, so his strong foot is on this side. If you're in a scenario where you're defending backwards, for a left footer whose foot obviously is on this side, and you're running backwards, it's quite easy to swing the ball away with your strong foot. Just get the ball out on this side. Whereas if it's someone like Maguire and they're doing the same thing, they have to do the same action with the outside of their right foot as well. And Ten Hag has pointed that out in the past that he's not happy particularly with that kind of dynamic in a defensive scenario as well. So when it comes to Branthwaite, it does seem curious to me because it does feel as though Manchester United have Martinez on the left and they have options they can play on the left. It seems weird to then replace a right-sided centre-back with a left-footed player. But I think what they're doing here is probably they're aiming for the profile and thinking this is a player who will increase in value, will go on to become, or should go on, if his trajectory carries on the way it's going, to be one of the best centre-back options in the world. And therefore, if we get in on him early, then we're building a squad for the future, not just a squad for the right now.
I think it's a good point to make as well, because there's a temptation sometimes to think, well, if this move doesn't make sense for the way the team is playing now, it can't happen. But often we see football clubs, managers, recruitment departments, they'll see a profile or a specific player and they think, well, this person's worth changing for, or this person's worth getting in and working out afterwards.
Yeah, and I think with the centre-backs as well, a centre-back is going to be good for almost every manager. It's different to maybe some profiles further up the pitch. Your centre-backs are almost always going to, especially in an elite team, there's a very sort of clear profile of what you want. And the idea is that Branthwaite will become a perfect example of that. So it's worth trying to get him early, trying to get him a little bit cheaper if you can.
On the note of cheaper there, JJ, it's reported that Everton are looking more in the region of £70+ million. Manchester United's opening offer was 35. Quite a big difference between those two. It has been said that that's just the opening offer, so maybe there's space to grow into. But 70 million, is that a reasonable expectation, would you say, for a player of this standing, given the precedents that have come before?
Well, he is a starting Premier League central defender he'll probably end up in the England team at some point, could easily play at a higher level, and he's 21, soon to be 22 as age goes on. Yeah. As that happens. Yeah. He's English, so you're worth a lot more because it helps with your Champions League and Premier League registration stuff.
I think he was in the preliminary, in like the extended English squad.
He'll be there at some point. But he's he's already a really good player. So obviously you're looking at similar defenders who are starting for big clubs at a similar age, and you're looking at people like Gvardiol's first one jumps to mind that comes in. and they're all worth 70, 80 million pounds. So Everton can put that there, knowing that big teams want to come in, they have bigger budgets, they can come and have that. A lot of the thinking with this will be that Branthwaite is, because he's English, is important. 6'5", blue eyes, trust fund. But he also, Everton have PSR stuff to think about. So the thinking might have been that you can get someone like that who's perfect for your squad building for a bit cheaper, like around 35, 40, because they need to basically plug a hole that they've got in their finances. But it looks like now, off the reporting you read in The Athletic, that they might actually be better off than they thought they were. So it's not going to be that. So then they can ask for what they want with him. And that's why they can hold out for more money. So we've seen this before from Man United, where they go in with a bid that they think is correct and get... they leave it a long time and eventually pay £180 million for him. So that could be what Man United of the past would do. We'll see what they do now.
One wonders, yeah.
When it comes to valuation as well, Everton are holding up other players as examples. So Josko Gvardiol, Wesley Fofana are players that they've held up saying these guys went for closer to 60, 70 million. And we think that Branthwaite is in the same class as that. So we think that he should be able to command the same kind of fee. But I do think the question here is going to be about scalability, as it always is when you're taking a player who's playing currently for Everton, a team that were in a relegation battle last season, and then putting them in a team like Manchester United who want to become
who want to avoid a relegation battle this season.
But
the underlying numbers, guys, what can you...
And I think the question then is, like, how do you read how he's going to start adding things like progressive passing into his game? I think his numbers in terms of ambipediality, right and left, a lot of that comes from the fact that he's not having to play a huge amount of dangerous passes into inside blocks to try and build through the middle. He's able to play just one side to the other, and that will raise that aspect. The question is, when you're playing for a team like Manchester United, you're trying to build up, you're trying to get these more aggressive passes through the middle. Will he scale up there? Will he be good enough to do that? And I think that's why the valuations are probably so far apart, is that there is still a gamble attached to this. There's still questions about how well he will scale up to the elite level.
Yeah, but Arsenal's transfer movings now, let's discuss, because of course earlier in the window, in days just gone by, there was a clear focus on Benjamin Sesko, who signed a new contract with RB Leipzig, so he's unavailable. But it seems, instead of moving immediately on to look at other centre-forward opportunities, Arsenal have kind of shifted their focus for now to midfield, with specifically to the number 6 position, which is quite interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think because if you look at Arsenal's squad and what they've got, the most likely place they need to either improve or replace and just fill the squad up is at number 6, because Jorginho and Partey are the two options there at the moment that they've really been using last season, and Partey might leave, and Jorginho is also getting on a bit, so you can stand to have someone ready to succeed him and be the next long-term 6. Because Declan Rice has been used more as this sort of 8 character here. And then we looked at Sesko, because what they maybe want is a different profile of striker, someone who can get them goals or just offer them something different. Because this team here was very, very close to winning the league and did all right in the Champions League, and they're developing as a unit. So there's not really too many places they really need to improve on.
I mean, they could have won it, right? Like, you
it
run
wasn't
that back
for Man City,
10 times, they would have won it, a few of them, I think.
So if you're squad building for an Arsenal, what you're probably doing is looking at just getting better individuals, someone who can make the difference in tight games. So you're just looking at better players.
Does that explain why, whether they come back to looking at a forward again later in the summer or not? Who knows? But that explains maybe why they were looking at Sesko, now they're looking at midfield, because it's not necessarily position first.
Depends who's available, like their budget as well. So there's very few strikers you can guarantee will give you what you need, and that's where they're linked with Isak, who'd be very expensive and hard to get out of Newcastle, and Benjamin Sesko, who's probably right to stay another year or two at least at Leipzig, just to develop more and turn into what you could be. So the players like him, and like Holland went to Man City after a bit of time at Dortmund, they're not really very common, and you get some players in that don't really justify the fee you'd put on them. And if Arsenal don't need to do that, because they scored a lot of goals with the system they have, with Havertz dropping in and lots of players around him, and they already have Nketiah, who might end up leaving as well also, and Jesus in the squad, they're already kind of fine. So if the profile's available and they like the person, the footballer that they can bring in, it makes sense to look at those kind of players. But otherwise, number 6 is the most obvious one, because everywhere else are pretty good.
Yeah, and I think there's a tactical element here as well, because we're talking about where Declan Rice is being played. We're talking about 6s and 8s, and I think it's sometimes a bit misleading to talk about 6 and 8 as though it's just an area on the pitch where the 6 is deeper and the 8 is higher, because with Rice, you get this curious thing with him where in defensive areas, you maybe want him to obviously be in the centre of the field a little bit deeper, because he's one of the best players in the world defending in those kind of spaces, both stepping forward and dropping back as well. So out of possession, you want him to be in these areas. But actually in the build-up phase, often what you see is Declan Rice dropping out, and we've seen, Jorginho brought in the latter half of the season. We also saw Ødegaard dropping in to help out with the build-up as well. And so what you're doing then is moving Rice away from the areas where he's going to be in build-up, the areas where you might expect a 6 to be in a build-up. Maybe sometimes you want Rice to be a little bit high. We've seen him play as an 8 as well. So I think the big question is, like, how do you get the most out of Rice? Because you want him in these areas in certain phases of play, but then you don't want him in these areas in other phases of play, or you need someone to help him out. So I think what this transfer market will be about for Arsenal is working out how do we get the best out of Rice in such a way that you don't have to, for example, drop Ødegaard out to build up all the time, taking him further away from the goal, which is where you want him to be. So I think the idea is going to be that they want to have Rice in some kind of double pivot relationship with someone else who maybe can operate on the left hand side rather than dropping in alongside on the right. Part of that is because Kai Havertz hasn't necessarily worked out as a left-sided 8 who can drop in and help out in the build-up. So it may be the case now that if they're using Havertz as a striker, they can bring in a left-sided player to play in a double pivot with Rice, who can help with the build-up stuff, but also you would hope be a player who can maybe attack this left-hand side, because Arsenal have had left-hand side problems throughout the whole of last season, where they've relied heavily on their right-hand side for creativity, progression, build-up. And I think if they can get someone who can play in this kind of role, then it might help them actually improve some of the issues that they've had as well. So when it comes to the 6-8 thing, I think it's a bit of a misnomer, because like Declan Rice, you want him to play as a 6 out of possession, but maybe you want to have someone alongside him to help out. So that's maybe why they're looking for what they're calling a 6 profile, someone who can sort of sit next to him, help him out, and then move into different areas in possession.
Well, interesting that you should say that, John, because JJ, in the June the 4th edition of the deal sheet, it was written, in midfield, Arsenal remain very interested in Martin Zubimendi. What do you make of him?
Yes, he's a lovely player. He's the kind of player that Barcelona have wanted to replace Busquets for quite a long time. Ooh. Very neat and tidy. This is where he takes his touches for Real Sociedad. You can see it here in his lovely viz. He is one of those neat and tidy moves in and out of...
he's never been in the back left, right back in there.
He's not allowed there.
Right.
If he does, the world will end, which is a shame. But he adheres to it. He's not a kind of a player who breaks up play an awful lot. He tends to have recoveries and intercept the ball. You can see his recoveries and interceptions, but he's quite low down on defensive actions when it comes to tackles and things like that. So that's what you get from someone like maybe Declan Rice that John's talking about. But Zubimendi is the kind of player who's lovely to watch in these big build-up bits of play that you'll get. I'll put him on here. He's anonymous. There we go. So he's just being here. He's really good at going in and out of space to offer these passes, but also his choice of pass and the weight of pass he puts on gives the person who receives the ball lots of options, which is important. You can't just give the ball to someone, you've got to put it somewhere they can then do something with it. And that's what he's very good at doing. So it makes sense what they want to do.
And it's worth saying that he does have a release clause in his contract of around £50 million, although he hasn't expressed any desire to leave the Basque region. But he'd be an interesting option, I would say. Another couple of players that have been linked previously, João Neves and Amadou Onana from Everton. I mean, could either of those options work?
Well, I think João Neves is more of a ball-winning midfielder. He can carry with the ball. I'm not sure he's quite the option for what they want at number 6. And Amadou Onana is similar in physical profile to more of their centre-backs. He's less of a 6 than a 10. He's more of an 8, I'd say, more box-to-box. He can take the ball down from the air.
Okay, but then the thing I find interesting about this is that maybe it is more player-led than it is position-led. I know John's gone through his tactics bit, but like it's, we've seen Arteta in the past go for players or talk about players as though they have a specific, not necessarily profile, but like other more intangible attributes that are difficult to tactically analyse.
Well, yeah, they've built a squad that's got nice harmony to it, and everyone seems to like each other, so you don't want to disrupt that. And as we said, they have a very good team and squad already, but they have the advantage now of being able to just buy superstars, basically, who can take them to different levels. They can either focus on things that suit exactly tactically what they want, or just players who are really good, because at its core, football is often won by the team with the best players in it.
Cool.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football, and you can try it free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.